Hello, all. Thank you for joining us again on the Almost Brothers podcast. Hey, will you do us a favor? If this podcast has meant something to you and encouraged you, will you consider becoming a monthly supporter? You could do $3, $5, $8, or $10 a month. What this does is this helps financially support the podcast so that we can continue to put out content and help better serve you. So if you would, down in the show notes, you can click the link, support, and become a monthly member. We love you. New episode coming your way.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Almost Brothers podcast. Minus Jeremiah today. He's late, so we're going to get started without him. On today's episode, we have a special guest, and she's going to be talking about some deep stuff, and it's going to be really awesome, and I think it's really going to touch somebody out there. So stay tuned and let it touch you and bless you. Coming up. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Almost Brothers podcast. On today's episode, we're talking with Miss Chelsea Hart. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Not bad. Jeremiah's just now calling me, so he's just gonna have to get up here, ain't he? Yeah, we're gonna. I've known you for a long time. You know, we've been good friends for a long time, but I never knew what we're going to talk about today,
right?
About you, or that you went through something like this. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be a good episode, and I think it's going to touch a lot of people that are listening. So I think that this story needs to be told. And what? So let's start out. What made you want to take this and put it to paper?
So the situation, I never talked about it. I told somebody when I was 19 and that was it.
Yeah.
I didn't go into detail. I didn't tell anybody else. It was just kind of like, okay, I told somebody, it's done. And then I became friends with Ashley.
Yeah.
And she started asking, she's great.
Yeah.
She started asking questions about it because I had shared some, little bits and pieces of it on Facebook and stuff. And
right.
She started asking detailed questions. And at first I was like, oh, what are we doing? This, we don't talk about this kind of thing.
Right.
And then I answered the questions and I was like, maybe I wanted somebody to ask me those questions my entire life and nobody did.
Right.
And we just got into depth about it and the way that I felt through it and how I still feel. And she eventually found out who it was. And she knows this person personally, used to hang out with him.
Yeah.
And during the time they were friends, he was sexually abusing me.
Yeah.
And she was just blown away that somebody can hold a position like he does and have everybody fooled.
Right.
So she asked me if I wanted to report it. And I was like, yeah. At first I was like, what?
Yeah.
Heck no, I'm not reporting it.
Right.
But then the more we talked about it, I was like, I could feel this healing happening inside of me.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, okay, I think I'm ready to report it. And there's, what's it called? There's a stipulation, kind of a guideline you have to go by.
Right. Yeah.
And there's a word for it.
Yeah, certain steps or whatever.
Yes. So it has to be within a certain year, range.
Yeah. Time period.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. And we've researched all of it before I ever tried to report it. And I was still in that time frame that I could report it. So I was like, okay, I'm ready to do it. If we don't go now, I'm going to change my mind.
Yeah.
So I had been talking with a couple of the police officers through message because I was like, I need to prepare myself.
Yeah.
And November of 2019, I went up to the police station and they interviewed me. It was very quick. It wasn't, not in a rude way.
Yeah.
It was I have specific questions. I need you to specifically answer them.
Yeah.
So I did that. I gave times of the year, what I was wearing, how old I was, addresses of the houses, and they were all for it. And I don't really want to get onto that, but they sent me to NASV in Cape, and it's for sexual abuse survivors.
Right.
And I had to do a recorded interview with them, and then they were working with the police station. And it didn't go as I wanted it to go.
Yeah.
I wanted charges pressed because,
That's
I mean,
the whole reason,
right,
doing
like,
it.
to me, the whole purpose of me reporting it wasn't necessarily for me. It was to try to protect other people, because somebody like that doesn't do that just once.
Yep.
They don't pick just one person and say, okay, I'm satisfied now. I'm done doing that.
Yeah.
They're not like that. So I told one of the police officers, I was like, I want to protect other people from this being done to them, like kids especially, because I was a kid.
Yeah.
And it didn't go as planned. They told me that there wasn't enough evidence to convict. And one of the police officers actually called me the last time, and they said, he's saying that everything you said never could have happened because there were always adults around. He answered the questions perfectly, and I just don't know if I believe him or not. And I was like,
yeah.
So that means you don't know if you believe me
Right.
or not. Like, the strength that it took to go up there
Yeah.
and give to detail about the way that he abused me.
Yeah.
Like, that took so much, and it made me feel even smaller than I already did.
Right.
And then for a police officer to say, I don't know if I believe him or not.
Yeah.
Like, what's
Yeah.
the point of it? What's the point of your job? You're
Yeah.
supposed to protect people. And I was so angry. Like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know what to say. I actually handed the phone to Ashley because she was with me, and I was just bawling. And I was like, I can't.
Yeah, because I can imagine after, mustering up the courage finally to be able to talk to somebody and try to get it, taken care of. And like you said, to protect somebody else from it happening. And then for them to kind of, I understand, there has to be a certain, way to go through these things, but it's like, at least, reassure that person like, hey, we're going to dig into it. We're going to figure something out, whether or not, it's been however long, it doesn't matter. We're going to try to figure something out so this doesn't happen again. Try to at least make something happen out of your pain.
Yeah, and it was always like they very rarely called me with updates. It was almost I always had to call them, but I stayed on them. Like I called them once a week for a while, and it was always, oh, I'm going to talk to the prosecuting attorney. Oh, there has to be a juvenile officer present. It was like they constantly had something that kept them from moving forward.
Right.
And eventually they were like, well, we're going to offer him a polygraph test. And I didn't hear anything back. And I called and I was like, I need an update. And he refused the polygraph and hired a lawyer. And I was like, is that not like more
is that not
reason
a red flag
for you to dig into it? And they were like, well, no, if so, I would be in question for something, I'd want a lawyer too. And I was like, no, like.
Not if you're innocent, It's like that wouldn't be my first thing to
so
do,
I was like, well, give me a polygraph.
Yeah.
Put me in front of a jury.
Yeah.
And like all these hoops they said they had to jump through. And I was just like, okay, well, I'm going to take it into my own hands.
Yeah.
And I said, if I have to blast his name all over town, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
If I have to spray paint it on my car, I'm going to do it. And one of the cops was like, well, you have to be careful because of slander.
Yeah.
And I said, if you can't prove that it's true, given all of this information I've given you, how can you prove it's not?
Yeah, that's really
like
good.
That is the only way that it's going to be slander is if you can prove 100% that it's not true.
Yeah.
And if you can't prove that it is, good luck proving that it's not.
Yeah.
So
that's good.
Eventually I was like, okay, I'm going to write a book. And I'm very detailed in it.
There he is. Hey, welcome.
Hey, how you doing?
How's it going? How are you? Was you napping?
It's just now 4:30.
I've said 4 o'clock.
But it is just now 4:30.
Yeah. just throwing that out there. Okay. That's so funny.
Well, what's up? What I miss?
What's up? We just started. Yeah, you plug her right in right there, bub. Yeah, we just started. We had to. She's got to get back to Malden, so. Yeah, we want to at least get started. And
I see. So what did I miss?
Just missed kind of the groundwork on what was going on with her, which we're just now about to get into the meat of her writing and her putting it to paper and you can kind of just give him the summary of kind of what you just said, just the rundown of everything that happened to you.
Okay, so I wrote a book.
Just run through all of that again for me.
I wrote a book, and Michael said like what made me decide to put this to paper, and basically. I reported my sexual abuse from when I was younger, from age 7 to 13. And eventually the cops weren't able to do anything. It did not go in my favor. And I told them, I was like, I'm going to do what I got to do. And they were saying that they could get me for slander. And I was like, well, you can't prove it's not true if you can't prove it is. So I wrote a book about it, and it's very detailed.
Yeah.
I use names.
Yeah.
I mean, it's graphic because I was like, I can't write this kind of story and not be detailed about it because, I mean, if you say, oh, I was sexually abused, that can mean anything.
Right.
But so I put in specific times and what he did and how he did it and how he would always manage to get me by myself. And I just go from there. And actually the opening of it, it's from recently, from August of this year. I had to admit myself to the psych ward for being suicidal. And that's how the book starts out. And then it kind of goes back to when the abuse started.
Yeah.
And like it's like part 1, the beginning, and then it's part 2 and part 3. And I talk about losing my dad to suicide and how all of that's played a factor.
Oh, wow.
Like,
yeah.
because as soon as the sexual abuse stopped or slowed down, my dad committed suicide. And then like it just went on from there, and I never talked about any of it.
Yeah.
And that's what got me to where I am now. Like that's what got me into the psych ward, because I was like, I didn't talk about it. So now I'm like, let's talk about it, because I can't be where I was. I mean, I was literally at the point where I had texted Ashley and I was like, I love you. You've been a great friend. Like, I'm struggling with suicidal thoughts. And that was it. Like, that was my goodbye message. And I was like, I can't do it anymore.
Wow.
And actually, Ashley texted my mom, and she was like, Chelsea needs to go to the hospital, because Ashley was saying, tell your mom, tell her you need to get help.
Yeah.
And I just didn't know how to do that. I mean, man, just because I knew that would hurt my mom. Like, not hurt her, but make her sad.
Right.
And I was like, I don't know that I can do that. And then mom was like, Ashley texted me and said, you need to go to the hospital. And it was like a relief, like that I didn't have to be the one to say it, but that I had somebody being an advocate for me.
Yeah.
And
well, and I know you and your mom are super close anyway. You know?
Very, yeah. So that day that I got checked in was actually my sister's baby shower. And I helped decorate, and like, it's crazy because you see online how it's like, this is the last known picture of this person who died by suicide so many hours later. Like, that was me.
Yeah.
That was me. I was taking pictures and laughing, and the next thing I know, I'm on my way to the Cape, to the hospital. And I broke down on the way home. My aunt and my cousin were with us, and somehow we got on the topic of being angry at God. And I just fell apart, because I am, like, still right now, like, I've really been struggling spiritually, just saying, like, I don't know that I want to serve a God that forgives people that sexually abuse people, especially kids. Like, and I know, like, that's not my place to say. I don't get to say who can have forgiveness and who can't.
Right.
But still, man, it's like an internal struggle.
Yeah, because that's easy. That's easy to say when it's not you that it's happened to.
Yeah.
You know, it's easy to tell somebody else, like, oh, you can't judge who gets, but it's like, well, you haven't been through what I've been through, you know?
Yeah. So I broke down. I never said anything. I just listened to him talk back and forth. And my aunt turned around and she looked at me, and I was just sobbing. And she was like, why are you crying? And I just shook my head. Like, I mean, I couldn't even talk. And she said, you're struggling, aren't you? And I said, yeah. And she was like, well, you haven't been the same in the last year. Like, we've noticed a change in you. And I was like, I don't know that I want to serve your God. Yeah. I don't know that I want, like, I don't doubt his existence, but I don't know that I want to serve him. I don't know that I want to live a life that reflects him, because he forgives people that took so much from me. Like, and it's so hard for me to wrap my mind around, but I mean, we're human. We're not supposed to be able to wrap our minds around it. And like, I've really been praying at night. Like, I've told him, like, I believe in you, but I don't know that I want to serve you. Like, help me through that. I've been a Christian since I was like 8 years old. I mean, I've done things I shouldn't have, but I mean, I was baptized. I've raised in church. I know who God is and what he can do. And I mean, I've seen him do amazing things, but I'm like, I'm mad at you. Like, how can you call me like your precious creation and forgive somebody that crumbled it? Like, I don't know, man. It's been a real struggle lately, just trying to get through that and like trying to get to the point of being able to forgive my abuser.
Yeah.
Like at this point, I'm like, I don't want to forgive
That
him.
would be even harder,
Yes.
than trying to understand, like, God, why could you let this
Yeah.
happen?
And I think it's okay to be mad at God.
Yeah.
He's a big God. He can take it.
Yeah.
And there was times in my life whenever I would, shake my fist at God and say why and not understand. But in doing that, he works things out in you. And I know that, it's tough, but it's all that process,
Yeah. It's just like this internal battle. Like, it's like literally dancing with the devil.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I know, okay, there is a God. Like, I've seen him do amazing things. Like, he obviously saved me or I probably wouldn't be here right now.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm like, man.
Yeah.
And part of it's pride. I mean, I'm very prideful about that. Like, and I'm stubborn. And it's just like, I want to be like, don't forgive him. And he'll be like, okay, Chelsea. And
Right.
not forgive him.
Okay. Yeah.
But man, I've really been struggling with that. And I pray every night. And then I'm like, well, who am I to not want to serve him?
Right.
And then pray to him and think that he's going to answer my prayers. But like, I think that he knows how broken I am.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like,
he understands that.
Yes. And I mean, I've always said, like, I think God wants us to say, I'm mad at you. Like, why did you let this happen? Or why didn't you prevent this from happening?
Yeah.
And I have to remember, like, he's not a God that punishes like that.
Yeah.
And man, it's been rough.
And even which again, it's easier said on the outside, but imagine how God is gonna and is already using that pain and that stuff that you went through to touch somebody who's listening right now, to touch somebody who's going to be getting your book, to touch somebody that even just hears your story. Like I said, I've known you for the longest time, since school, and I never knew any of these things about you. So it's already changing my whole outlook of who you are and how strong you are and how amazing you are.
Thank you.
So even in that pain, you could say, God, how could you let this happen? But realize that I see why, because it's to help someone else that's going through this, to help.
Right. Even if it gives somebody courage who's experiencing that right now, whether they hear it on this podcast or read it in your book, for them to speak up and stop it, because I'm sure to you, that's like the biggest thing.
Yes.
Is that, for women or whoever, just to speak up when this is happening.
Yeah.
And it's hard, I'm sure. I mean, it's probably the last thing you want to do is tell somebody.
Yes.
That's what she kind of hit on earlier is she came forward with this because she didn't want to, not so much for her, but so it wouldn't happen to somebody else.
Right.
And I think kind of like you talked about how you really get raw in your book and talk about stuff. And I think you have to, because I've seen so many cases of kids that they don't understand what it is while it's happening. They think this is normal. This is what.
Yes, absolutely.
So somebody hearing those things, it may unlock something to go, wait, this isn't normal. This isn't something.
And I do want to add on that. Whoever's listening, if you have kids, if there's kids in your life, please ask them. Like, yes, have conversations, but don't assume that they're going to come to you and say, somebody touched me inappropriately, because they're not going to do it.
Yeah.
I never did. I knew it was wrong. And I was scared to death that I was going to be the one to get in trouble.
Yeah.
And then at some point along the way, I was like, well, if it's happening to me, at least it's not happening to somebody else.
Yeah.
Like, my mind, like, I was like 9, and I was like, well, if it's happening to me, at least it's not happening to this person. And like, I can handle it. I would rather it happen to me than to them. And then eventually I found out that the same person was inappropriate with several people.
Yeah.
And I was like, it doesn't stop.
No.
At what point is somebody going to say, okay, they did this, keep kids away from them, make them face the consequences, whether they're a man of God or not.
Yeah.
Like, just because you're a man of God, it doesn't excuse the consequences of it.
Yeah.
Like, you don't get to get away from that.
Yeah.
So parents, aunts, uncles, grandparents, like whatever, talk to your kids about it.
Yeah.
Use the correct terms for your body parts.
Yeah.
Boys, girls, whatever. It's not okay for you to touch anybody. It's not okay for anybody to touch you.
Yeah.
And ask them just randomly. Like, that will tell you a lot by their facial expression.
Oh yeah.
Like, don't just assume that they're going to come to you and say, this happened to me. And they're not. They won't.
Yeah.
And like, don't make that assumption, because it's going to ruin their life.
Yeah. And I want to get back to the kind of, you were talking about how God could forgive somebody to do that. But I think that in order to receive God's forgiveness, you need to repent for that and make right with the person that you hurt. So I'd have to question that if God has forgiven that.
That's exactly what my aunt said on the way home that night. She was like, who says that he has been forgiven?
Yeah.
If he's still doing it and he isn't really sorry for his actions, like who says that he is forgiven? So I'm like remembering that, like as I'm struggling through each day, I'm like, who says he is? Like, and he will face judgment. And that's not, I mean, that's on him. But like spiritually, I'm doing a lot better than I was, because I was like ready to go full on atheist. Like I was like, I don't want to believe it. He's not there. He doesn't exist. He doesn't answer prayers. And in the past week, 2 like crazy stories. Ashley, she had a spot in her liver, and like I spent all night praying for her, and she went to the doctor to get a scan on her liver, and it was completely clean.
Oh, wow.
And I was like,
wow.
Whoa. Like, and this was after everything. So like I was still struggling at this point. And then I took some pictures of this girl, and her and her husband had tried to get pregnant for like 5 years. They did IVF, and they've got to adopt a little boy. Well, she was putting him to bed one night, and somebody called her, and they were like, are you sitting down? And she said, yeah. And she said, well, birth mother delivered again. Do you want it? So within a year, she's got 2 babies.
Wow.
And I was like, oh my gosh. And like this baby, for the first 18 hours of his life, they didn't feed him. They tied his umbilical cord off with a shoestring. And so she's telling me all of this. This was just this past week. And I was like, oh, like I had chills everywhere. And I was like, okay, like I know that that's a good God. Like I've served that God and worshiped that God and prayed to that God and sang to that God. And then some days I'm just like, I don't want anything to do with it. Yeah. And I know that that's just part of the healing process. Like I have to work through those emotions. I can't just bottle it up, because that's what got me here in the first place. Yeah. Oh yeah. So like I'm talking about it, and if it makes people uncomfortable, then it makes them uncomfortable, because I was uncomfortable for years. Yeah. So
well, it needs to be talked about, you know. Yes. That's what's so great about you having, you know, such a good relationship with Ashley, is that she almost forced you to open up and talk about it, you know, and it's kind of that stuff that you don't realize is on the inside that when it comes out, it's like, it hurts as it's coming out, but it feels so much better.
Yes. And like we were talking about it the other day, and I was like, when you asked me that stuff, I didn't have to carry that by myself anymore. Like it was like you took off some of that load. And we always joke that like the first 2 months of our friendship, we didn't know each other's favorite color or our middle names, because we like dove right into the deep stuff. Yeah. Like we knew each other's deepest secrets, but we didn't know each other's favorite color. So we always joke about that.
What's your favorite color?
You don't know it?
No. Camo?
Nailed it.
I don't think we do either. Yeah.
It's important.
I mean, his favorite color is black.
Absolutely.
I think anybody would know that.
Yeah. That's about it. In my closet, just black.
I mean, I'd have to lean towards blue.
Okay.
Like a Carolina blue.
Bring out your eyes.
You always got to make it uncomfortable.
Yeah, just real weird.
Yeah, as you're like staring at my eyes.
Yes. Just staring into your eyes with my hand on my chin.
Yeah, see if you haven't done a video yet.
Yeah, eventually. But yeah, it's like I said, it's just crazy to see the strength of you being able to open up and to talk about this, and like I said, to not just talk about it, you know, with people that you know, but to put it out there for the world to see, because that's what really surprised me and shocked me, is that it's like, hey, I've got this book and here it is, it's out there, like, you know, go and get it. And I know me and Mom was talking about it this morning, and she's wanting to get it, and I'm wanting to get it, and Jamie's wanting to get it, so it's just awesome. It's called Room 17, right?
Yes.
That's all, and that's cool. That's a cool opening to kind of, I like stuff like that where it, you know, it shows you now and then takes you back and shows you how you get to there. So what was the biggest thing for you once, like you said, you were struggling with the suicide? Like what do you think the biggest thing was for you to kind of back you up from that, to kind of calm you down, or to kind of show you that, okay, like everything's going to be fine, you know? I think, was it family? Was it, you know, Ashley? Or?
Ashley played a big part in it, and my mom, of course. Mom was there through the whole thing. Like she held me on the couch when I was crying, and my aunt and cousin were actually on the way back to Jackson, and she called them, and I could hear her say, she's falling apart again. We got to take her to the hospital. And they came back and they were like, pack your bag. So and my aunt was like, your Uncle Kevin and Ethan are going to meet us there. And like, I mean, just having that group of people, and Ashley drove up, and like, I knew that they were waiting in the parking lot.
Yeah.
And part of me was worried about them because I was like, man, they don't have time for this. But I would have been there for them.
Yeah.
And they know that.
Oh, yeah.
And they knew how important it was for them to be there for me. So like just leaving and knowing they were there, the emergency room, the whole psych ward thing was absolutely terrible. The social worker, she's being investigated, possibly having her license pulled. Like,
Wow.
it was awful. I'll tell you about that in a minute. But like just knowing that they were there, and not once did they say, you're being dramatic, or
Right.
you'll be okay, or like, I was like, I need help.
Yeah.
And instantly, like my mom, I mean, she walked me into the emergency room. She held me up. Like I was literally like, I couldn't even speak to the receptionist because I was tore up.
Yeah.
And I was like, you're going to have to give me a minute. And I was trying to pull myself together, and my mom was like, hold my arm, like hold me up.
Yeah.
And she sat back there with me and like helped me talk when I wasn't able to. And that was a lot of it. And my sister, she was like, my girls need you. You know, she's pregnant and
Yeah.
she's having a little girl. And she was like, my girls need you. And I was like, I know, I'm going to get better. I'm going to do this. And also the way that it affected everybody when my dad killed himself.
Yeah.
Like I can't imagine hurting people in that way. But when you get into that space, that like rock bottom, literally rock bottom, you're not thinking about that. It's almost
Right.
like they would be better off without me.
Yeah.
Like I would be better off not in their life. Like trying to like, you're doing them a favor.
Yeah.
And man, it's crazy to be in that mindset. Like unless you have been there, you can sympathize with it, but you can't ever say like, yeah, I totally get it.
Yeah.
Because I mean, you don't even recognize yourself. And I got into counseling like 2 days after I got out. And my counselor's amazing. She told me from the beginning, she was like, I won't ask questions because I know that you're going to tell me whenever you want. So like she'll ask me like, how's your week been or whatever. And somehow it works because I just start talking
Right.
and I'm like,
Leads right into
I'm like, wow.
Yeah. No wonder you got a degree.
Yeah. But that's a lot of it. And my primary care physician, she upped my antidepressants, and I could tell a big difference after that. And like used to, I was like, oh, I'm not going to tell anybody that I take antidepressants because it makes you feel even smaller than you already are. But
Yeah.
now I'm like, heck yeah, I take them.
Yeah.
And nobody should be ashamed of that. Like
Yeah.
you're not ashamed to take Tylenol when you
Right.
have a headache.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
so I think also accepting that and accepting that I needed help and being able to say, I need help, and not carrying that around. Like that was a big thing that got me through it. That it was like, okay, that's not your only option.
Yeah.
And I mean, just talking about it, whether it be with one person, with a group of people, like talk about it.
Yeah.
Say those things, because chances are nobody's going to know that you're struggling. Like 2 days before I went into the psych ward, I was at Six Flags riding
Yeah.
rides, having fun, taking pictures, and nobody knew a thing.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Is like, you know, you look at your Facebook or your Instagram, and it's like y'all just have a blast.
Mm-hmm.
Like you and your mom, or you and Ashley, and you're doing goofy stuff, and you know, car rides and crazy videos, and it's you really wasn't from the outside looking in, no idea.
Right.
But they say that's how it is with most people. You know, it's kind of a switch that just they can do on and off. You know,
Yeah.
where it's like they could put on this front of being happy, but really they're just eating
Yeah.
up and
Right, and that's kind of what's scary is some people are really good at that. You know, they're really good at putting that front up that everything's good and they're all right, even if they're in church or whatever. But and internally they're just struggling, you know, and just like you said, don't know, like right there, you know, ready to just do something crazy, and you have no idea because they're
Right.
just so good at burying things and putting on that false front.
Yeah, and I feel so like my heart goes out to people that don't have somebody there that they can go to, that they could turn to and say, "Hey, I'm struggling."
Yeah.
You know, like a lot of people feel like they're just completely alone and have nobody to
Right.
talk to. So
Yeah, because when you have somebody holding you accountable like that, they can see through that.
Yep.
You know, especially
Yes.
once they're, you know, you become a little closer with them, that you can be like, yeah, I'm good. And they're like, no, stop lying to me. What's going on? You know, and I mean, I'm thankful that I have a few people like that in my life because, I mean, you have to have that.
Yeah.
We're not created to do things alone, you know, on our own. I mean, my wife, you know, she's, you know, my biggest, in my corner in that area. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I can fool you and I can be able to fool the pastor here, fool some people, you know, but she always, she can tell,
Oh, yeah.
and maybe I don't even realize it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I'm really fooling myself too.
Yeah.
She's like, no, there's something off, and 9 times out of 10, she's right.
And lucky. I would say lucky 9 times out of 10. But yeah,
And
so
I think like people that do struggle with that can flip that switch on and off. That's to protect other people, because like for me personally, I'm like, if I told them all my thoughts and how I felt, they couldn't handle it.
Yeah.
Like I can barely handle it. And if I had to tell people that love me these things, like that would hurt, that would break them to know that I was feeling like that. And Mom and Ashley both, they hold me accountable. They can tell when I'm not in a good mood or when something's bothering me. They know my nervous ticks and they call me out on it. And that's exactly what I need. I need them to say, what's going on with you? Stop biting your fingernails. Talk to me. Like, what are you feeling? What's going through your head? Like, and I need that.
Oh, yeah.
And so, I mean, that's very important to have, even if it's just one person.
Yeah.
Like, that is so important to have.
And it's
in your
coming out
life.
of a loving place, It's not like, hey, you tell me what's wrong from being nosy. It's like they really want to know and they love you and they want the best for you. So
right. And you said something there, it's even if it's just one person, I think a lot of times it needs to just be one person.
that's
because
closer,
there's a lot of things that you don't want to share. I mean, obviously you wrote a book on it and I think that's great, but I'm saying like just day-to-day stuff. You know what I mean? You don't want to just be telling all your business to a lot of people. A lot of people use that against you and a lot of people whatever. You know what I mean? So I mean, I just think it's critical you have a couple, one or two people that you can really just unload on.
Oh yeah. And like we said, you hit on it earlier and we said on a previous episode, it's like some people, they think that, oh, stop that. You need to, they think that's the way to help you. And it's like, that's not helping. Like it's like, oh, well, look, you're just so blessed. Just stop that. It's like, that's not helping.
Like, let me be upset.
Yeah.
Let me work through that. Work through it with me.
Yeah.
And then I'll be fine. Or maybe I won't. But either way, like, people have to let you feel those things and not like dismiss it or make you feel small for it. That's if they love you, they have to love that part of you. Yeah. And that's just really important to know who's in your corner and who you can count on.
Especially after that type of trauma, that's got to be some built up anger and frustration and confusion.
Yeah.
And like you said, for a long time you thought it was your fault, or you thought, at least it's happening to me and not somebody else. And that's a terrible, terrible mindset to have as a kid. I could not imagine, and I can't imagine for the, millions and millions of kids that it's happening to still, still to this day. So like I said, this is just going to be an open avenue for you to speak life into those kids. Maybe they're going through it now, or maybe they've been through it, so, cause we've had it in my family as well with a few of my cousins and one of my aunts. So, I know them being able to listen to your story and read your book and just kind of see how strong you are coming out of it, even though you're still working through it. You may not feel very strong, but being able to open up is the strongest thing that you can do. So it's just amazing to hear and see and be a little part of it. Just be a little piece in that, because like I said, I didn't know anything about any of this. Jamie knew more than I did. But so how did your mom, I know this is one that me and Mom was talking about this morning. How did your mom react when she found out about what had happened to you and everything that went on?
At first she apologized, she was like, well, I'm sorry that I didn't notice that it was going on. And at the beginning, that was kind of it. And I think neither one of us knew what to say. Like, I didn't fill in the blanks for her, and she didn't ask questions. Yeah. And it wasn't like a neglect thing. It was like a, holy cow. Yeah. I had no idea. And also, she didn't know the severity of it. Like, she didn't know how often and how long and all of that. And I think she just thought maybe it was a one-time thing, or she hoped it was a one-time thing. So we never talked about it anymore after that. But then after I started speaking out about it, she was like, man, like she kept apologizing, of course. Yeah. And I was like, it's not, I mean, he you knew what he wanted you to know. Yeah. Everybody. And he had everybody fooled. And she texted me the other day and she was like, you're worthy, you're strong, you're beautiful, you're powerful. And like just really encouraging me and lifting me up. And at first I think she was worried about me like going out and using my voice for it because she was worried about what it would do to me. Right. Which, I mean, I'm not a mom, but I can see why she would think that. Yeah. And she's just been really great through all of it, just support me. And she kind of gets that look on her face like, Chelsea? And I'm like, Mom, I got it.
Yeah.
And she's like, okay,
Yeah.
I support you. But like, I know that she's worried about what it's going to do to me because ultimately I'm her concern, not anybody else. And which I can respect that. But at the same time, like I feel like I have a duty to get that out there.
Yeah.
And as I was writing my book, I was having new memories. It was like I was typing one thing and then it was a new memory would pop in my head and I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
That's crazy that I can push it away for all these years and not think about it and almost even believe that I've healed from it. And then I start writing about it and I have all these new, like, graphic, vivid memories.
Yeah.
And I wrote about them. Like, as they came to me, I was like, okay. And some of them, I mean, it's just like a movie in my head.
Yeah.
Like, certain things will set it off, certain phrases, like a washer lid closed. If you read my book, you'll understand why.
Mm-hmm.
It's just little things like that. Certain smells like that set it off and it's constant memories. But when I was writing, I was like, where did that memory come from?
Right.
And then I was realizing all these feelings that I had. Like in one part of my book, I write about how sometimes I would be around him and nothing would happen. And I was so messed up that I thought something was wrong with me.
Yeah.
That he didn't touch me inappropriately. So I was like, what's wrong with me?
Right.
Like, what did I do? So, like, I mean, just the way that it completely morphs your mind and the way you think and how you see yourself and what's right and what's wrong. Like, I mean, it takes everything you ever knew and puts it aside.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's wild to think about. Like, back then I was like 7.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, this is wrong, but whatever, you know?
Yeah.
And now that I'm older and I can, like, work through those emotions, I'm like, holy cow. Like, the way that I felt, like, just walking past him. And if he didn't acknowledge me, I was like, oh no, what'd I do?
Yeah.
Like, is he mad at me? Like,
Yeah.
it's so twisted.
Yeah.
And then that brings on a whole other thing of guilt because, like, why would I want him to acknowledge me?
Yeah.
But it's wild just to look back and realize how much damage it did do to me.
Oh yeah. And even now, you know, I like you said, you've got these new memories. Cause that was one of the questions I wanted to ask is, are you getting new memories now that you're coming out and talking about it? Just kind of stuff that you never thought of or that you maybe put to the back of your mind? Cause I know that tends to come up a lot with victims like that.
And when I first started going to counseling, my therapist, she was like, you will probably have new memories emerge. And I was like, okay. And man, she was right. Because some of the things that I remember, and like I remember them to the detail, I can tell you exactly which direction we were facing in which room of the house. Like, I mean, I've drawn out diagrams of the places. I can tell you exactly where I was at. Like, the memory of it alone is, like, it's just crazy. I don't even know how to explain it, that how it impacts you and you think you've forgotten it.
Yeah.
And then one thing happens and you're like, whoa, where the heck did that come from?
Right.
And then you start remembering more and more. And when you're older, you like, oh, that's why I'm this way. And that's why I don't trust people. And that's why I don't ever ask for help. And like, I was like, oh, that's just me.
Yeah.
That's just Chelsea being independent. No,
Yeah.
it's not normal to be how I am. And it's because of somebody else.
Yeah.
Like, that wasn't my own doing. That was his.
Yeah.
And I mean, I was a kid. It wasn't my job to protect me.
Yeah.
So just working through that and like realizing, okay, nobody knew what was going on because he didn't want them to.
Yeah.
Like that, I have to remember that because I instantly want to get angry at my family
Yeah.
for being like, why didn't you protect me?
Yeah.
But people like him, man, they're master manipulators and they'll do anything to make it look like they're not the ones in the wrong.
Right.
And that's exactly what he did. And I mean, he's got the police believing it. So obviously he's really good at it because they can't help me. So I'm helping myself.
Well, that's right. At least you're getting the word out and telling your story and letting people read it and understand where you're coming from and just what you've been through. And it's amazing to see God working in your life and this crazy thing that happened to you, but God moving through you, and he's going to touch lives and he's going to touch kids and people who've been through this and survivors. And I could see this story even touching predators, you know, that maybe that, maybe they're in jail or they're not, but they're trying to reconcile with what they've done, and maybe seeing the other side of the coin will help them find a way to understand the victim's side of it. So I'm excited at your book and what it's going to do, and
Thank you.
just what God's doing in your life. So where can people find this?
On Amazon.com. And if you have Kindle Unlimited, I think that's what it's called, you can get it for free, or you can get the Kindle version for $8, I think, and the paperback is 12. Sorry, the paperback is 12. And I am planning to do a book signing at some point, so
Okay.
I would love people to come out and order a book and talk to me about it, ask me questions,
Heck yeah.
tell me your story,
Yeah.
break
And
down
you
the walls.
Yeah. And you definitely let us know, and we'll make sure we talk about it and get it out there for people to get
All
there.
right.
And we'll probably be there. We'll come up there.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. You got anything, Jeremiah?
Man, I don't have much.
It's only 4:30.
And I could have swore you said 4:30. Anyway, my bad.
It's okay.
It's okay, man. I love you. Yeah. Well, this is awesome. I'm
Thank
glad
you.
you came up, and love to have you on again and kind of talk about where it's going, and maybe it'll be a second book coming up.
Yes. I'm hoping that I get to a point where I can write a second book, like a follow-up of like starting at the healing process.
Yeah.
And going through that and things I learned about myself and how to cope with what's happened and how to move past it and to find who I really am.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that's something I can do in the
Yeah,
future.
because you're just now beginning to heal from
Yes.
it. You're just now letting it out, and I can imagine the weight that's been lifted. Being able to finally get out and talk to somebody.
And I
about
can definitely tell a difference from now since last year when I reported it. I mean, I feel like freer.
Yeah.
And I know that that's just going to keep increasing as I go on with it. And I'm looking forward to that because, man, I was 13 the last time that I was sexually abused, and I'm 31 now. And it's still affecting me to this day.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, on my way here, I was even thinking about being in a room with two men.
Yeah.
And like that it makes me nervous.
Yeah.
Not that I think that you guys would ever do anything like that, but just the idea of being in a room alone with two males, like that's how it's affected me. I'm 31 years old, and that's been carried on through my entire life.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's with family, people I know. Like, it's just a fear of men.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's because of that.
Yeah.
And like that was another realization on the way here. I was like, oh crap.
Yeah.
I gotta.
That's what I was trying to be. See if this is the right word. Cognitive. I was trying to think about as I talked to you on Facebook, and I was like, hey, I'd love to have you come up. I was trying to see if Ashley wanted to come with you or your mom, or I made sure Bubby was with us, because I wanted you to feel comfortable.
Yeah.
And like I said, I've probably about 5-6 years ago, I went with one of my cousins who was sexually abused by his stepfather. I got to go with him as he testified against him because he was up for parole. Like, he got arrested and it was up for parole. So I know just in the sitting down and talking with him and knowing what kind of set him off and the things that made him feel uncomfortable, I was, I wanted to do that for you, and make sure that you were comfortable.
Thank you for that.
Yes. Yeah. So I was definitely trying to make sure Bubby was up here with us, to just kind of, because like you said, even if you don't think somebody would do that, you still have that in the back.
Right.
I mean, you've been programmed, to be like that. So, yeah. Well, Jeremiah, you ain't got anything on your heart?
Man, I'm just blessed, man.
Mr. Blue.
Mr. Blue. No, I don't really have nothing. I'm gonna save it for next podcast.
Sounds good. Yeah, the wives are going to be on the next one.
Oh.
So, those are interesting.
Yeah, they get a little crazy. Well, hey, thank you for joining us. This has been Almost Brothers with Michael and Jeremiah. Remember, if you don't have a home church, come check us out at the Lighthouse in Dexter, 8:30 outside under the tent, 10 o'clock inside. We love y'all.
Love y'all.